Hello, everyone. Welcome to Basic Anatomy and Physiology Review. This time we focus on the endocrine system. Now let's call on Sir Harold Labajo of Cebu City. Good evening. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, Doc.
What do you call a collection of glands and group of cells that secrete hormones that regulate growth, development, and homeostasis?
Endocrine system,
These are chemical messengers of the endocrine system released into the blood.
hormones,
Class of hormones that cannot pass through the cell membrane, less likely to be stored in the body. What type?
protein hormones,
These are a class of hormones that can pass through the cell membrane, can be stored in the body.
um, steroid hormone,
Local hormones that do not enter the bloodstream are called
prostaglandins,
process that amplifies a small change or that reinforces change.
positive feedback,
A response that opposes the original stimulus. Hello? Naku, nawala. Wait lang. A response that opposes the original stimulus.
negative feedback,
Okay. Mechanism of hormone action used by steroid hormones, which bring their message directly into the cell.
one messenger model,
Mechanism of hormone action used by protein hormones attaches to cell membrane receptors, which activate enzymes in the cell to produce the desired effect.
two messenger model,
Excessive hormone production by an endocrine gland.
hyper secretion,
Deficient hormone production by an endocrine gland.
hypo secretion,
Deficient hormone production by an endocrine gland.
no, number 12, number 12,
Number 12, sorry.
hypo, number 12, pituitary gland,
The master gland, yeah, that's number 12, pituitary. Hormone secreted by anterior pituitary gland that stimulates the growth of bones.
growth hormone,
A protein hormone secreted by the anterior pituitary that stimulates ovulation in females and androgen production in males.
luteinizing hormone,
Peptide hormone released by anterior pituitary which promotes lactation.
prolactin,
Secreted in increasing amounts during puberty by the anterior pituitary gland to stimulate development of reproductive cell follicles.
follicle stimulating hormone,
Peptide hormone released from the anterior pituitary, it stimulates the production and secretion of steroid hormones by the adrenal cortex.
adrenocorticotropic hormone,
Hormone produced by hypothalamus released from posterior pituitary. It induces contractions of the uterine muscles during labor.
oxytocin,
Hormone secreted by the posterior pituitary gland, which aids in water reabsorption by the kidney.
antidiuretic hormone,
Okay, or ADH. Part of the brain
ADH,
links endocrine and nervous systems and controls the pituitary gland.
hypothalamus,
Hypersecretion of growth hormone in adults, which causes overgrowth of bones in hands, feet, face.
acromegaly,
Yeah, acromegaly. Gland found in the neck that regulates rate of metabolism produces thyroxine.
thyroid gland,
Produced by the thyroid gland, decreases blood calcium levels by stimulating calcium deposit in bones. Antagonist of parathyroid hormone.
calcitonin,
Secreted by parathyroid glands and controls calcium and phosphate metabolism.
Para-hormone.
Parathormone. Na siya T.
Para.
It's
Para.
parathormone.
Para-hormone.
Oo.
With
Wrong spelling. Condition affecting
spell.
nerves causing muscle spasms as a result of low amounts of calcium in the blood caused by deficiency of parathyroid hormone.
Tetany.
Condition in which the body's bones become weak and break easily may be caused by hypersecretion of parathormone.
Osteoporosis.
One of a pair of ductless glands located above kidneys consisting of a cortex which produces steroidal hormones and a medulla which produces epinephrine and norepinephrine.
Adrenal gland.
Outer part of kidney which produces corticosteroids helps the body deal with long-term stress.
Cortex.
Inner part of the kidney which produces epinephrine and norepinephrine.
Medulla.
Secreted from adrenal cortex aids the body during stress by regulating glucose, carbohydrates, fat levels.
Cortisol.
Corticosteroid hormone secreted by cortex of adrenal gland regulates mineral balance in blood and controls fluid volumes.
Aldosterone.
Excessive production of cortisol by adrenal cortex with symptoms of abnormal fat deposits and wasting away of muscle.
Cushing's syndrome or Cushing syndrome.
Cushing's. Located
Cushing
partially
syndrome.
behind the stomach in the abdomen, functions as both an endocrine and exocrine gland, produces digestive enzymes as well as insulin and glucagon.
Pancreas.
Hormone secreted by the beta cells of islets of Langerhans of pancreas, responsible for regulating metabolism of glucose.
Insulin.
Hormone secreted by alpha cells of the pancreas raises blood glucose levels.
Glucagon.
Condition in which the pancreas fails to produce enough insulin or the body's cells cannot use it properly, characterized by excessive thirst, weight loss or gain, frequent urination.
Diabetes.
General term for female steroid sex hormones secreted by the ovary, responsible for typical female sexual characteristics.
Estrogen.
Hormone produced by ovaries, which acts with estrogen to bring about menstrual cycle.
Progesterone.
The male sex hormone produced by testes, which promotes maturation of reproductive system accessory structures and development of male secondary sex characteristics.
Testosterone.
Small mass of tissue near the center of the brain secretes the hormone melatonin.
Pineal gland.
What is the acupuncture point that will stimulate the pineal gland? Itong dire. So this time you don't have to melatonin. Intang. That's extra H1 sa head 1 extra point. So you needle it, you'll be able to sleep well.
Doctor, is also to suppress hunger.
Wow, I like that.
Nabasa ko you tap it for 30 seconds when you're getting hungry.
That's tipid,
suppress
diba? And then you don't have budget. And then
Yintang.
okay.
Yintang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you sleep na lang, no? And then don't eat na. Pa. 30 seconds. Excited, Sir Harold? O, diba? Press mo lang. No need to needle. Hormone secreted by the pineal gland used to regulate sleep patterns. So why buy pa? Thank you, Ma'am Trix.
Melatonin.
Yes. The gland located near the heart aids in body's defense against infection by making antibodies.
Thymus gland.
What does endocrine mean?
To secrete within.
What does the endocrine system influence?
Metabolic activities of cells by means of hormones.
What is the function of the endocrine system?
It integrates body systems like homeostasis by using chemical messengers called hormones for communication.
What are the effectors of the endocrine system?
Responsive body parts, autonomic nervous system.
Wait lang ha. What are the major endocrine glands?
Um, these are hypothalamus, pituitary gland, pineal gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, thymus, adrenal gland, pancreas, and sex organs.
How does a hormone find its target tissue?
The cell must have a protein identifier and receptor.
So meron siyang pass, no? Meron siyang gate pass, meron siyang ID, no? What is a hormone?
A hormone is a substance secreted by an endocrine gland into the bloodstream that acts on a specific target tissue to produce a given response.
What is the function of hormones?
To alter metabolic activity. They are target specific and have a predictable response.
What can influence hormone levels?
Stress, infection, changes in balance of fluid and minerals in blood. Example like calcium levels.
Okay, so be aware of this. That's why when there is such thing as hormonal imbalance, I think the most common here is stress, no?
Stress.
Are large or small amounts of hormones needed to get desired response? Large or small?
Uh, s- Only small amounts. Hormones are very potent and have long-lasting effects in target cells.
Are hormones regulated by positive or negative feedback?
Negative feedback.
What are tropic hormones?
Uh, these are hormones that target other endocrine glands to stimulate their growth or secretions. Uh, it causes series of reactions to achieve ultimate goal, uh, domino effect.
That's why tropic siya. Which hormones target reproductive tissues or glands?
Sex hormones.
Anabolic hormones stimulate what?
Anabolism or building up in target cells.
What are local hormones?
These hormones are not transported through the bloodstream.
What do paracrine secretions do?
Act on neighboring cells.
What do autocrine secretions do?
Act on the source cells itself.
What are prostaglandins?
These are group of compounds, paracrine substances that mimic hormones produced by tissues for a particular organ, regulate cellular response to hormones, wide variety of functions, act locally and very potent.
What are the two hormone classifications?
Um, Steroid and non-steroid.
What are steroids produced from?
Uh, they're produced from cholesterol.
What is a steroid made of?
structural lipids.
How does a steroid enter a cell?
It enters a cell by diffusion because both the hormone and cell wall are fats, lipids.
Where is the receptor for a steroid located?
In the nucleus,
Steroid hormones are insoluble in what?
water.
What does the hormone do to the cell?
It alters chemical process of cell.
Non-steroids are produced from what?
Amino acids, protein based.
How does a non-steroid enter a cell?
Facilitated diffusion requires a receptor on target cell membrane.
What is the process by which a non-steroid enters a cell?
Hormone binds to a receptor on cell membrane. Hormone passes message on to second receptor inside the cell, which carries out the cellular changes.
What changes take place in a cell when a hormone causes the opening or closing of ion channels?
It alters plasma membrane permeability or changes membrane potential.
Hormone action can stimulate what kind of synthesis inside the cell?
Protein synthesis.
What are some cell changes that take place as a result of hormone action?
Deactivate enzyme systems, induce secretory activity, stimulate
Mitosis, no? Hormones activate which cells?
target cells which are identified by specific receptors for the hormone to bind to.
What are the three factors that target cell activation depends on?
It depends on blood levels of the hormones, number of receptors on the target cells. So more receptors is equals to greater response. So the affinity of those receptors for the hormone. Number of receptors on target cells may change.
What is upregulation?
It is the increase in number of receptors on target cell due to prolonged decrease in level of a hormone.
What is downregulation?
This is decrease in number of receptors on a target cell due to prolonged increase in level of hormone.
What is the hypothalamus?
Collection of specialized cells located in the lower central part of brain. This is not a gland, but this is part of the brain.
What does the hypothalamus connect?
It connects endocrine and nervous system.
What does the hypothalamus control?
It controls the pituitary gland by producing chemicals that either stimulate or suppress hormone secretions from pituitary gland.
So the hypothalamus controls the pituitary, no? How does the hypothalamus control the pituitary gland?
Hypothalamic releasing hormones stimulate cells of anterior pituitary to release hormones. Nerve impulses from hypothalamus stimulate nerve endings in posterior pituitary gland to release hormones.
What is another name for the pituitary gland?
Hypophysis or physis?
Hypophysis. What is the pituitary
Hypophysis.
gland?
This is a two-lobed organ, front and back, that secretes major hormones.
Where is the pituitary gland located?
At the base of brain in cilia torsica, saddle and sphenoid, attached to hypothalamus by infundibulum.
Okay. Infundibulum. The pituitary is divided into
Infant. Two sections, namely the anterior and the posterior.
What is the anterior pituitary?
This is hypophysis, upward projection of pharynx made of glandular tissue, produces and releases hormones.
What is the posterior pituitary?
Neurohypophysis, downward projection of brain made of neural tissue, stores hormones.
What hormones do the anterior pituitary secrete? Or you mentioned the hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary.
These hormones are the growth hormone, or GH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH, follicle stimulating hormones, or FSH, luteinizing hormone, or
Luteinizing.
LH, and lastly the prolactin, or a PRL.
Luteinizing. What hormones do the posterior pituitary secrete? There are only two.
Oxytocin and anti-diuretic hormone,
Okay,
ADH.
oxytocin and ADH. The hypothalamus stimulates the anterior pituitary by
Sending out hormones.
what do the releasing hormones do?
Stimulate synthesis and release of hormones.
What do the inhibiting hormones do?
Shut off synthesis or release of hormones.
Okay. What is another name for the growth hormone?
Somatotropin, or STH.
Okay, easy na, no? Somatotropin. What is the GH? Growth hormone. What is it? Remember,
Anabolic tissue building hormone.
you're aware of the bodybuilders, no? They use anabolic steroids. Diba? So we have our, no, all you have to do is maybe try to stimulate the growth hormone production by the anterior pituitary. Expert dyan si Madam Tricks. Diba? So let's try to make a study on how it can be done. No? What does the growth hormone do?
It stimulates increase in size and rate of body cells, controls growth of body, promotes growth of long bones, muscles, and other tissues.
What stimulates the secretion of the growth hormone?
Growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH.
What inhibits the secretion of the growth hormone?
Somatostatin or SS.
Statin, no? Statin
Hmm.
inhibits somatostatin. What is caused by decreased levels of growth hormone? So if you have decreased growth hormone levels, what will happen?
Dwarfism.
Yes. Okay, what is naman
My
gigantism?
excessive levels of GH.
Yes, of course.
Correct ba, Doc?
Yeah, when you're still growing, during the growth years, diba?
Hmm.
What is acromegaly? How is it different from gigantism?
It occurs uh, when there is an increase of GH after growth
After the
years.
growing years, yes.
Mm.
That's a difference, ha? So it will be medyo iba na kasi hindi ka naman mag-grow. What is prolactin?
This is a hormone found in males and females. It promotes milk production in females, and also it decreases testosterone levels in males if uh, it is in excess or too high.
Prolactin is inhibited by what hormone?
Uh, Prolactin release inhibiting hormone or
PRI.
PRIH.
What is TSH?
TSH, this is a thyroid stimulating hormone. It controls secretions of hormones from thyroid gland, controlled by thyrotropin releasing hormone.
What is another name for TSH?
Thyrotropin.
Yeah. For growth hormone, what's another name? Somatotropin, di ba? So,
Somatotropin.
thyrotropin. What is another name for ACTH?
Corticotropic.
Adrenocorticotropic hormone. So the other name is?
Corticotropin.
Yes,
Corticotropin.
What does ACTH control?
It controls some secretions of adrenal cortex of the adrenal glands.
That's why it's called ACTH, no? Makes sense. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. So the adrenal cortex. What is ACTH controlled by?
It is controlled by corticotropin releasing hormone.
Or the ACTH-RH. Oo, lagyan mo lang ng RH. What is follicle stimulating hormone also known as?
Gonadotropic hormone.
What does the FSH stimulate?
Development or maturation of egg containing follicles in ovaries, follicular cells to secrete estrogen, production or maturation of sperm cells.
When is FSH not present?
During pre-pubertal period in both girls and boys.
Okay, before puberty, no? Wala siyang FSH. So what is FSH controlled by?
Gonadotropin are releasing hormone.
What is LH also known as?
Gonadotropins.
Just like FSH, no? What does LH promote?
It promotes a secretion of sex hormones.
What does the LH stimulate?
It stimulates the release of egg from ovary. Also, it stimulates secretion of testosterone.
So LH is present in both males and females, no? That's why it's called luteinizing hormone. What is LH controlled by?
Gonadotropin releasing hormone.
Does the posterior pituitary release hormones? Yes or no?
No, 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 no.
What does the posterior pituitary contain?
Nerve fibers and neuroglial cells called pituicytes.
What is stored in the posterior pituitary?
Okay, it stores hormones that are produced by the hypothalamus,
What are those two
ADH,
hormones? Yeah. ADH and
ADH and
oxytocin.
OT,
Oxytocin.
oxytocin.
Remember? Okay. Secretory cells of the hypothalamus are called.
Neurosecretory cells.
What is the ADH?
This is antidiuretic hormones. It helps to avoid dehydration or water overload.
What does the ADH target?
Distal convoluted tubules.
Or DCT. Okay.
Mm.
What does ADH prevent?
Urine formation.
That's why it's called anti-diuretic hormone. Hindi
Yeah,
ka napaihi. That's yung nagko-conserve.
Mm.
What does ADH cause to happen?
Causes kidneys to reduce water excretion, keeping water in the bloodstream. In high concentration, it raises blood pressure.
What does oxytocin stimulate?
Stimulates uterine contractions, milk ejection reflex.
Oxytocin is produced by
Hypothalamus in response to uterine and vaginal wall stretching and stimulation of breast.
okay, which part of the pituitary is it stored? Posterior.
Ah.
Together with
Doc,
okay, nakalimot na. What is a thyroid gland?
this is the largest endocrine gland located on anterior neck, wrapping anterior portion of trachea below larynx. Vascular with two large lateral lobes connected by isthmus.
Okay. T4 and T3, thyroxine and triiodothyronine are, what are these?
These are the two iodine-containing compounds released by the thyroid.
What do T4 and T3 do?
Regulate rate of metabolism of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins.
Mhm.
In addition, it also increase metabolic rate, regulate tissue growth. T4 is in greater amounts, while T3 is more potent, released from carbohydrates.
What controls T4 and T3?
Thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH.
Okay. If the TSH is high, what does it mean? Does it mean that the T4 and T3 are low? Or does it mean that the T4 and T3 are high? Okay.
No,
Actually,
doc.
yeah, sa endocrinologist, you should know these things, no? So if the TSH is high, so that means kulang yung thyroid hormone. Okay? T3, T4 may be low. Okay? So if the TSH is low, Negative feedback, di ba? So that means ano. What does calcitonin lower?
It lowers blood calcium and phosphate ion concentrations by inhibiting release of calcium and phosphate from bones.
What does the calcitonin increase?
The rate at which calcium and phosphate are deposited in the bones.
Yeah, these are called the osteoblasts. What is the order of
Osteoblasts.
operations for the thyroid coming from the hypothalamus? Sige, let me. Yeah. So
First is the from
hypothalamus.
hypothalamus
Then
to
what happens?
thyrotropin, from hypothalamus next to thyrotropin releasing hormone TRH
Okay. So this,
to anterior pituitary.
yeah. So the TRH will stimulate the anterior pituitary to release the TSH. And then we have the thyroid. Okay.
The thyroid.
That's why it's called thyroid stimulating hormone. It stimulates the thyroid. What is the parathyroid gland?
Four small yellowish pin-shaped encapsulated glands located on posterior surface of thyroid.
What does the parathyroid hormone increase?
Blood calcium levels by stimulating osteoclast production and inhibiting osteoblast production.
So bone destruction ng osteoclast. What does PTH decrease?
Blood phosphate levels.
What does the PTH stimulate?
Kidneys to retain calcium and excrete phosphate. And it also promotes calcium absorption by the intestine, and also calcium is used in muscle contractions.
What are the adrenal glands?
Pyramid-shaped glands located on top of each kidney.
What are the adrenal glands divided up into?
Two sections, the adrenal cortex, the outer region, and the adrenal medulla, and the
Inner region.
inner region.
So the outer one is the adrenal cortex. The inner region is the adrenal medulla. What are the three layers the adrenal cortex is divided into?
Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis.
Yes, those are the three layers. What does the adrenal cortex do?
Synthesizes and releases steroid hormones called corticosteroids.
What is aldosterone?
This is a mineralocorticoid located in the zona glomerulosa, targets the proximal convoluted tubules and increases blood volume and pressure by promoting conservation of sodium ions in water. Na homeostasis.
Sodium homeostasis.
Homeostasis.
What is cortisol or hydrocortisone?
This is a glucocorticoid located in the zona fasciculata. Regulates regulates glucose metabolism, stimulates synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrates, and is controlled by corticotropin, releasing hormones, and ACTH from anterior pituitary gland.
What are adrenal androgens?
These are gonadocort cortisoids located in the zona reticularis.
Corticoids, not
Supplement
cortisoids.
ah, corticoids.
Gonadocorticoids.
Gonadocorticoids located in the zona reticularis. Supplement sex hormones from the gonads may be converted to estrogen after menopause, contribute to onset of puberty, appearance of secondary sex characteristics, sex drive in females.
What hormones are regulated by the adrenal medulla?
Epinephrine and norepinephrine.
What controls the release of epinephrine and norepinephrine?
Sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight.
What happens when epinephrine and norepinephrine are released?
Heart rate and blood pressure increase, vasoconstriction, respiratory airways dilate, increases depth of breathing, blood glucose level increases, and metabolic rate increases.
What is the pancreas?
Located behind the stomach on left side of abdomen, functions as a mixed gland.
How does the pancreas function as an endocrine gland?
Releases insulin to lower blood sugar and glucagon to increase blood sugar.
How does the pancreas function as an exocrine gland?
Digestion.
What are pancreatic islets?
Hormone producing islands of cells.
Acini.
Acini.
What are the two types of pancreatic cells?
Alpha cells secrete glucagon and beta cells secrete insulin.
What does glucagon do?
It stimulates the liver to break down glycogen. It also stimulates liver to convert non-carbohydrates into glucose, and in addition, it stimulates breakdown of fats and also increases blood glucose levels.
What is glucagon controlled by?
Blood glucose concentrations.
What does insulin do?
It promotes formation of glycogen from glucose. It inhibits conversion of non-carbohydrates into glucose. Also, it enhances movement of glucose into adipose and muscle cells. In addition, it also decreases blood sugar levels and enhances synthesis of protein and fats.
What is insulin controlled by?
Blood glucose concentrations.
What is the pineal gland, also known as?
The pineal body.
What does the pineal gland do?
It secretes melatonin, regulates circadian rhythms, and affects moods and emotions.
What inhibits the pineal gland?
Daylight.
Okay. Where is the thymus located?
Behind sternum in mediastinum.
Mediastinum. Does the thymus grow?
No. It appears smaller in adults than children because it does not change in size.
What does the thymus secrete?
Thymosin and thymopoietin.
What does the thymus promote?
Development of T cells or the immunity cells.
What are the gonads?
These are reproductive glands, ovaries, testes, placenta.
What do the ovaries secrete?
Estrogen and progesterone.
What do the testes secrete?
Testosterone.
What does the placenta secrete?
Human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG.
HCG. What are secondary sexual
Uh,
characteristics controlled by?
Estrogen and testosterone.
Now let's go to organs of the endocrine system. What is number 8?
Number 8 is the pancreas.
The glands of the endocrine system produce.
Hormones.
Number 2.
The thyroid gland.
Special feature of endocrine glands is that they don't.
They don't have ducts.
Number 5.
The testes.
Endocrine glands secrete hormones directly into.
Interstitial spaces.
Number 1.
The pituitary gland.
Parathyroid glands. What number?
7.
What is number 3?
Number 3 is the adrenal glands.
Which of the endocrine organs is also an organ of the digestive system?
The pancreas.
The ovaries are what number?
Number 4.
What is number 6?
The pineal gland.
How big is the pineal gland in an adult human?
5 to 8 millimeters long.
Maliit, no? Super liit. Which of the following endocrine glands is anterior and posterior portions which produce different hormones?
The pituitary gland.
Which of the following are referred to as the neuroendocrine glands?
The hypothalamus and the pituitary gland.
Let's go to physiology of the endocrine system. Thyroid stimulating hormone is secreted by which gland?
The pituitary gland.
Where is testosterone produced?
The testes.
Which gland in the brain secretes ADH?
The pituitary gland.
How do hormones in the endocrine system move around the body?
Via the circulatory system.
Where are the adrenal glands located?
On the top of the kidneys.
Adrenaline is secreted from.
The adrenal glands.
Which of these is not an endocrine function of the pancreas?
The secretion of pancreatic amylase.
What type of hormone is testosterone?
A steroid hormone.
The beta cells in the pancreas secrete which hormone?
Insulin.
Where is the pituitary gland located?
In the brain.
Which reflex is adrenaline most often associated with?
The fight or flight reflex.
What is the name given to absolute insulin deficiency?
Type 1 diabetes mellitus.
ADH is secreted in response to.
Reduced plasma volume or dehydration.
Which hormone increases blood glucose levels?
Glucagon.
Where are the parathyroid glands located?
Behind the thyroid gland.
What is one of the main roles of thyroxine?
Increase the basal metabolic rate.
What are steroid hormones made of?
Lipids.
Which one of these is not a function of estrogen?
Decreasing metabolism.
Which area of the brain synthesizes ADH?
The hypothalamus.
What kind of hormone is estrogen?
A steroid hormone.
What is the main function of cortisol?
To increase the blood glucose levels.
Which of these is not an indicator of an overactive thyroid?
Weight gain.
What effect does insulin have on blood sugar levels?
It increases absorption into skeletal muscle cells.
What substance is used to make steroid hormones?
Cholesterol.
Glucagon is secreted by which type of cell?
Alpha cells of islets of Langerhans.
Which of these hormones is released in response to stress?
Cortisol.
Which of these increases the metabolic rate?
Thyroxine.
Which kind of hormone crosses the target cell membrane?
A steroid hormone.
What is the main function of parathyroid hormone?
The regulation of calcium and phosphate levels.
Which one of these is a sex hormone?
Estrogen.
Congratulations, Sir Harold. Thank you so much.
Take it up.
Very good job.
Welcome back.
Okay, sandali. We're going to